contact databases have gotten really cheap. Like I'm talking like either free, like Apollo is now like free to get emails, or like, $90 a month or something like that, if that even. And so what's happened is like essentially every single sales team in the world roughly has access to the same contacts, same accounts, same lists, right? You can go find any company in the world in one of those databases and you'll go find 50,000 companies, right? So if you and your competitor are both working off that same list, now how do you get an edge, right? And the edge comes down to not the fact that you can contact any of those companies, it's which one do you contact first? Do you contact the first one on page 1? Do you go to page 49, right? Do you go to page 30? You have no idea, right? All the accounts look the exact same. And so where I think the next kind of evolution of go-to-market tech's coming is like, out of these big databases of accounts, do you select this one or do you select that one?
Welcome back to On the House, Jack. It's been what, 6 months, something like that. Like, first question, what is a signal? On the one hand, you can think signals are always dynamic because it's got a lifetime. Once it's been detected, maybe it's there for 2 or 3 months and then it drops back off. But then I've heard other people use the term static signals. And just a quick example, like static signal, I've heard people say could be department size. It's fairly static. And then dynamic signal could be a C-level change or a recent M&A. Do you consider static signals to be a signal? Or like, interested to hear what you think.
Yeah, we do. I mean, I think static signals are one of the more important things because, this is my favorite thing. The way account list building has worked for like literally 20 years since like Apollo and ZoomInfo originally came out is like you literally get like 4 options. You get like geography, you get employee count, you might get industry, and you might get like 1 or 2 other like random filters, right? Like a revenue size or something like that. The reality is like most companies, your ICP doesn't fit those 4 filters. It's probably much more specific than that. Like, for example, let's say you sell like to mobile app developers, right? You sell to like large mobile apps, you help support them with their new feature updates.
Yeah.
Based on existing filters, your best guess is to like plug in software development and hope that like maybe 1 out of every 10 of those companies is actually a mobile app developer. That's where static signals come in, is you actually add a static signal that says like, does account have a mobile app? And now every single account you get is a mobile app developer versus 1 out of every 10. So that's like a huge benefit. The way I like to I just got off an onboarding call with a customer, literally had that example. The way to think about signals is there's a list of items that define what is a perfect prospect. And a perfect prospect just doesn't have 1 signal. It has 2, 3, 4, 5 of those signals all occurring at the same time.
It's interesting. It's just working out what the border is between a signal and just basic firmographics, I guess. Like employees, would you consider employee count a signal? Because it is changing.
Yeah, we don't typically include that in our platform as a signal. That's more of a static kind of ICP filter because sometimes it changes quickly, but most of the time it's relatively stable. And then what we do is like we rerun that through our account suggestions to say like, hey, do any new accounts fit this employee count? But it's not technically a signal in our platform per se. And much like you would say, like, are they hiring for this very specific role that does this or build mobile apps or something like that? That's more of what we consider a signal rather than the traditional kind of 4 filters that we do have that are static. We've kept those as like a static true filter.
Oh, interesting. Thanks for clearing that up. And then I guess my next question would be, I saw your Michael Curzon post and it was talking about everyone was going after contacts, and you said, actually, let's take a big gamble and let's look at account timing. And then kind of going down that rabbit hole, can you talk about why that gamble paid off? And then kind of from there, is everything downstream of finding the right accounts? Like, would you agree with that? I'm just interested to hear kind of how important you think finding the right account timing is in GTM.
Yeah, I in that post in particular, I think something that I've been thinking about a lot is that contact databases have gotten really cheap. Like I'm talking like either free, like Apollo is now like free to get emails, or like $90 a month or something like that, if that even. And so what's happened is like essentially every single sales team in the world roughly has access to the same contacts, same accounts, same lists, right? You can go find any company in the world in one of those databases and you'll go find 50,000 companies, right? So if you and your competitor are both working off that same list, now how do you get an edge, right? And the edge comes down to not the fact that you can contact any of those companies, it's which one do you contact first? Do you contact the first one on page 1? Do you go to page 49, right? Do you go to page 30? You have no idea, right? All the accounts look the exact same. And so where I think the next kind of evolution of go-to-market tech's coming is like, out of these big databases of accounts, do you select this one or do you select that one, right? And now that's what we're seeing all these companies come into the space. Like we came into the space, Common Room came into the space, Pocus, which just got acquired, came into the space. HubSpot's even launched their own prospecting agent last week, which is absolutely bonkers. But like everyone's realizing that the next edge in tech, in go-to-market tech in particular, is like selection, right? Selection and timing. And how do you have a system that actually flags those opportunities to you to say, hey, this business is going through some major change that you can help with, go help them. And now having a system that does that every day. And so we're seeing a lot of competition. So I won't say it's fully paid off, but there are a lot of people getting in the space. And there's a lot of big companies getting really interested in this kind of technology.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting what you say, because you're right. Like, it's not like the databases are missing accounts. Like the accounts are there. The question is, which accounts do you reach out to? It's almost like Signals is responsible from blasting to tier 3s, which, because the majority are going to be tier 3s, to who are the tier 1s and 2s, identifying them as quickly as possible. And obviously, the more niche you can get on a Signal or a Signal stack, the better your chances are of going to, hitting a higher tier account. So it really is the separator. It is the separator, isn't it?
A great story I have is we're working with a team and they give their mid-market reps, like I think anywhere between 1,200 and 1,600 accounts, which is insane, right? Imagine getting a CSV of 1,600 companies, and that's your territory. Go sell them. And so these guys came to us and they're like, I literally have no clue where to start, right? Like you could go in and you could pick the biggest name, but like, how do you know some random company you've never heard about isn't facing the exact problem you could solve right now, right? And for them, it was like helping migrate internal data. So they're looking at like digital transformations and hiring data engineers and some other roles and some other very specific things the leadership was saying. They get on there, literally within like 30 minutes of running the signals, they're like, I didn't know these accounts existed, and I didn't know that they were so good. And what our system had done is it like re-ranked their whole universe of 1,600 and said, hey, here are your best 500. And the best 500 weren't the biggest names. They were the ones that just announced a digital transformation or started hiring for a bunch of data engineers when they had never historically done that, right? That's where we were able to segment and say, hey, go look here. And then the preceding 2 weeks, those reps opened 7 enterprise deals, which is the dumbest thing ever. It's one of the best success stories in the shortest amount of time from BirdDog. But it just shows like whether it's with our signals or someone else's signals, the ability to segment your list based on some level of timing, whether that's using ChatGPT, whether it's using Clay, whether it's using HubSpot, Common Room, us, it gives you a really good edge on the competitors who are not, because you can go pick the right accounts at the right time and not waste your efforts on the companies that aren't doing anything or don't have anything relevant going on.
What's the workflow then? Like, if you've got 1,600 accounts, before maybe they just go to number 1 and go to number 2, and then they maybe add 10 to a sequence, and then find all the personas. But obviously I think there were 3 or 4 different groups that you'd listed out. And then not all signals are made equal, right? Like some signals are even more potent. So how do you then like prioritize? How should a BDR or an AE, then go and like structure their like week around prioritizing accounts? And should they just forget about anyone that's not in the top buckets until they've maybe exhausted that list? Like how should they go about working the accounts?
Yeah, I've seen a couple different strategies employed. The most common one is with the BDRs. Like when it's a solo rep, not supported by a marketing team, and they're just on their own, what we tend to see is they go through our system top down through the signals. So they'll look at the most recent signals. And the way we actually do it is we don't look at like just one signal. We look at the combination of multiple signals and then create a scoring mechanism based on the number of the signals that you've had happen. Your marking of that rank. So you can differentiate signals as like high, normal, low importance. And if you have like 3 high signals happening in the last month on an account, we'll flag that as like your top account. And so now it gives you a way to prioritize between like, hey, this account's hired for someone, and this account, their CEO just got on the phone and said, hey, we're doing a digital transformation tomorrow. We're putting $500 million behind it. So it gives you a very clear way to differentiate that. And so what we're seeing is reps just go down our list and go boom, 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 boom. Because even for me, like we use BirdDog to sell BirdDog. My top account is not my top account in a week from now. It's not even definitely not my top account in a month from now. It's definitely not my top account next year. And so it's almost like a dynamic list of that 1,600 or 800 or 500 or 200, where it's always rotating, it's always living. And I'd say like the more advanced teams, this is the strategy I really like, is you segment your list out by tier 1, 2, and 3. Tier 1s and 2s have recent signals. They're really good fits. They're big logos you might want to win. The tier 3s are no signals, no nothing, long shots, bad fit companies, maybe not truly ICP. You run what we call air cover to them. So you run mass market campaigns, essentially warming them up, understanding like that's not really going to convert. It's more of like a recognition campaign or a branding campaign to your tier 3 accounts, so that when they have a signal and become tier 1 or 2, your reps can hit them and they're already familiar with what you're doing. It's much like the way we do our content. Our content is essentially the air cover to our tier 3 accounts, right? Or our general market. And that way, when someone does have a signal, they're like, oh, I know Jack, or I know Noah, or I've been familiar with BirdDog. And that way we can just have a conversation, and that trust is already built. And so that's where we're seeing the most successful teams. I mean, obviously we've booked like stupid amount of demos in the last year and a half as a team of 2. And so like you can get very creative with these strategies and then way outperform the market by doing something that is different, that isn't just going down a list and cold calling, right? You got to be a little more creative and say like, hey, how do we run like a multi-channel campaign that uses both sales and marketing techniques to warm these accounts up, get them familiar, have them trust us, and then when the sales team's ready, then they go hit them.
Yeah, I love that, because it's the classic like in market, out of market. And if you sense out of market, it's like a little seed you just need to throw and water a little bit. Like, okay, let's positive interaction, let's give some value, don't expect. And then when you have that conversation later, so it's like the marketing. I guess a question I really want to chat to you about is how does like a startup using BirdDog versus a scale up, like maybe if you've got like just a very small sales team, they're not necessarily thinking about, okay, other reps are assigned accounts. But maybe if a scale up are using it, what are they doing? Are they uploading that list of 1,600 accounts to BirdDog and then it's looking for signals across those? Or is it like you get the list and then you need to manually check whether it's your account or not? How does that kind of work for like bigger teams?
Yeah. So on the very small teams, we'll start there. It's a blue ocean, right? Like you can give us a list of accounts you want to track. Like if you have logos you want to win, like I have logos I just want to win because I think it's cool. So I'll throw those into BirdDog, but then I'll have the system run in the background and be like, hey, Jack, this is where you're winning deals. Here's a bunch of other accounts that look very similar. Go target these. And so that's constantly running in the background. So for like a startup like ours, it's like, I can go hunt any deal. Like I don't have to compete over territories or patches or geographies or whatnot. But as soon as you start to get into like these more structured sales teams and even into like some of our biggest customers, which are like more publicly traded, so like the most formal, is usually when we come into that team, the list and territories are already set, right? They have their 1,600, they've decided that somehow, because we aren't developing that process with them, that we're coming in and helping them establish a process. And so when we start, we'll take in that list of 1,600. It will go into that rep's unique profile. Because if you haven't learned, charging by seat is dead. So we don't charge by seat. So every team adds essentially all their reps. All their reps get a unique login. It all syncs back to the Salesforce or HubSpot. And when that rep logs in, it's their 1,600 accounts ranked. And so we'll do that for each rep. And then at the admin level, which is the really cool part, they're getting the account suggestions. So they're saying, hey, Timmy over here works in the US. You guys built this list of 1,600 by point from insert old school sales tool, which probably isn't that great. Here's 500 other accounts Timmy should be working that fit his ICP and have better signals than the ones he has now. And so it's feeding them new opportunities that they should be allocating to their team. So that's how it works on like the more scale up or formal sales team side.
Wow, just to dive a little bit, I don't want to spend too long here, but is this, because obviously a lot of bigger teams are using like HubSpot or Salesforce, is it like a bird dog into, like, are you connecting those two together so that as say someone assigns themselves an account in HubSpot, then it connects, or is there some manual connection that needs to be done? Like, just curious how like dynamic the system is.
Yeah, so it's very dynamic. Honestly, I don't really understand how it works. I'm kind of the idiot of the two of the co-founders here. Noah he's a wizard. And so what he did is he built Salesforce and HubSpot integrations from scratch, which is very unusual for a startup of our size. But what it does is it allows us to make it very fast. And so if we're on the HubSpot App Store, which is kind of cool. We have like a HubSpot app card. Like, we're super deep in the HubSpot community. I love it. But our integration, we did it with literally a $30 billion publicly traded company in under 5 minutes. And the sales ops guy was like, I don't know what you guys have done, but that was the easiest integration I've literally ever done in my entire life. And we call it our one-click integration, which is cool. And so then it just dynamically updates. So it's obviously pushing all of our data to your platform, to your CRM, so you can store it. The reps can work out of there. You can run your campaigns out of there. You can push that in your other sales tools. But then for us, we're reading that back in and saying, hey, you changed ownership on this account. We'll change ownership in our platform, right? And so it's always reflecting what is the source of truth, which is the CRM.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And from like, again, just thinking from like a scale up perspective, obviously all the reps have their own BirdDog accounts. Are you wanting them to not actually log into BirdDog? You want them to live in Slack. Notification comes in to say, hey, Darren, a new tier one has been identified. Start working that. Do you want them to just do you want BirdDog to be kind of just a Slack tool? Is there benefit to being in BirdDog the platform as well?
Yeah, I'm kind of agnostic to it, but this is what I'll put it. The customers who stick around the longest with us do not log into BirdDog. So Most of the time we're integrated behind the scenes in their system, and we're just feeding opportunities. We're like, hey, Darren, account. Hey, Darren, new account signal. Hey, Darren, this closed lost deal you marked 6 months ago now has these 5 signals since you closed lost it. And so we're just feeding opportunities, and then that's tied into all their systems, from Clay to their CRM to Claude. And the reps are just able to interface with that data and that research. That way, when they do call or do write an email, now that email is not generic. It's, hey, I just saw this very, very nuanced thing happen. I'm imagining that's causing this very specific problem. Here's how we can help solve that problem. And so that's what we're seeing is the most successful, at least from our like own retention and customer happiness.
Oh, interesting. This is so interesting. Okay, next question. It's a bit rapid fire. Because you mentioned something about, obviously everyone's using Apollo. Yep. So when you're looking at, say, job changes, everyone's using that. So maybe those certain types of leads are going to be messaged more. They're going to have fuller emails. They're going to have more people cold calling them. It's going to be harder to penetrate. Obviously, BirdDog, because you guys are like the underdogs and you're rising, it is an edge. And you said at the beginning about having a go-to-market edge. As more people use BirdDog, and more people are using the same signal stack and the same signals, do you think that we're going to get to a point where actually we should be targeting the tier 3s again? Because, like, for example, everyone wants to get in touch with 11 Labs, but no one wants to get in touch with boring old company over there that no one's reaching out to them but have a load of money and they're investing in a load of tools. So I'm just curious to, like, what is the balance, do you think, there? And do you think there's still opportunity in some tier 3s? Or is it just a case of you identifying signals that no one else is, and that's where the magic is?
Yeah, because if that tier 3 account is really investing a bunch of money in new tools, that would be a signal, right?
Yeah,
So
true.
then it would be flagged. So like a great example is like 11 Labs, right? That's a great logo, right? And that company's expanding like crazy. So they're going to have a good amount of signals. But at the same time, like a very small account that you probably haven't heard of, which is most of the accounts we end up recommending anyways, they have signals too, right?
Yeah.
It's just no one's looking there. No one's reading their job postings. No one's keeping up with their CEO. No one's following their website. No one's reading their LinkedIn post. And so as we see more companies go in this essentially direction of sharing more online, right? Like we're seeing all these content roles come out. We're seeing founders post online. We're seeing people essentially invest super heavily in getting their brand online over the last like, call it year. That only accelerates the signals trend because that puts more data out there to extract. And so for us, like we're constantly staying at the forefront of like, how do we have signals that no one else has, right? How do we track things no one else has? And then two, how do we harvest historical data to build a moat that no one else has too? So how can we reference and say, hey, this has happened historically. That's different than what's happening now. Because if a company's hiring for one role every month, right, one new marketing role, not really a signal. That's just a pattern of what they're doing. What is interesting is when all of a sudden they're hiring for 10 marketing roles. And that's what we're flagging as signals now, where we're saying, hey, this is an anomaly. This is 500% above the 6-month average. Go. And so you're having to constantly stay above what Apollo or ZoomInfo would call signals, which is not really signals. It's more of a news event notification. For us, a signal is a pattern. It's saying, hey, A plus B plus C happened. That probably means they're focused on this. And so it's not the individual job posting that matters a lot. It's the combination of 3 or 4 events that have happened at the same time.
Wow, that's so interesting because it's not about absolute. It's not like if they've been hiring for 10 every month for 5 years, it's change, isn't it? You're looking for signals of change within a company that signals there's a bit of it's change. It is change.
Yeah, that's literally the best way to think about it. Because like I was trying to explain this to a very large like finance startup. We know the name of it. It's a top 3 credit card company. And I was talking to their team and I was trying to figure out the best way to put it. Because for them, it's like, okay, think about like your company credit card. Like, I have a company credit card. I'm probably not going to change that. Like, even if you gave me the best pitch in the world, I'm not going to just rip that out on a whim. And especially for us, like we just swapped banks within the last kind of 6 months. And like, you could give me 10 grand tomorrow. I will not swap that because it was so annoying to swap it the first time. And so when we think about a lot of companies, what you're selling, even for us, like what we're selling, there has to be some sort of change in the business where they actually consider shifting their process, right? Because if the process is working, why change anything, right? Like if my credit card swipes and it works and we get good interest rates, like I'm going to stick with them forever, right? But if we hire on 10 people and now that breaks our credit card system or it causes some other issues, well, now I'm back in the market. And so it's how do you look for these inflections in a business's story or timeline where that window's open, right? When we start hiring a bunch of people, all of a sudden I may be back in the market for a business credit card. But for now, I'm not. And so you want to be aware of that timing. What are the windows where someone is willing to rip out their system and replace it? And then monitor for that window. And then that gives you your highest percentage odds of actually converting that deal versus just reaching out to anyone and everyone in the world and only 2% of the companies are in that window, right, of considering swapping everything out.
Signals can be used for 2 things, right? They can be used to identify a high probability account. But what you also see, and people sometimes confuse it, is they also then think that they need to use that in the messaging. Hey, I saw this and I saw this and I saw this. And sometimes it's too much cognitive load. And so I guess my question for you is, when should we use signals in the messaging? When shouldn't we? Or is the sole purpose of it just to identify the account quality and that's it, full stop? And when we do messaging, that's a completely different ballgame.
Yeah. The way I like to think about it is like, if your house is on fire, you don't care how someone shows up with a bucket of water. You just care that someone shows up with a bucket of water. It doesn't matter if they're in a fire truck, a pickup truck, a car, if they walk on foot. It doesn't matter how they get there. It matters that you have this pain point right now, and the perceived likelihood that that thing can solve it is very high, right? So in the Signal world, we see a lot of people get stuck. Like I've seen our customers get stuck and they put a research paper before they get to their pitch. And it's like, cool. You told me everything I already know about my own business. I got bored before I read how you can help me. And so that's a common trap I think a lot of teams fall into, is like, you're just restating all the things that this company knows, especially if your signals are good and they're accurate, right? You don't need to restate it. They already know it. And so how do you show you've done a little bit of homework, right? Because I think that's always helpful. But really cut to the chase of how you can solve that problem that those signals imply, right? And so for us, like going back to the water bucket example, like I don't care how you show up. As long as you show up at the right time with the right solution, I'm buying from you. And so signals are more about the timing aspect of it, of nailing the time of when that business is going through that moment where they're considering a rip or replace, or adding that new technology, or suffering from that pain that's going to cause that service to be needed. And less about, hey, we're going to personalize this message to the nth degree because we have all this research and data and insights and details. Because really, no one cares. They just want you to solve their problem and make them more money or less costs or whatever it is, right? So as long as you show up at the right time with the right message and the right solution that seems like it's going to solve their problem, you could send them literally a one-line email. As long as it checks all those boxes, odds are more likely than not of you actually converting that deal, irregardless of what you're putting in the actual content of the email.
Yeah. Do you know what's really interesting, Jack, about everything you're saying is, look, for example, I'm working at a scale up at the moment, and it's a free for all in terms of accounts. Like there's quite a lot of BDRs, and it's just like, you're the UK market and you're mid market, go and find accounts and do outreach. And I think like what you're saying actually is the better way, the future way to do it is you've got a Bird Dog, which I can already see Bird Dog's not just a platform, it's also a service. Like you're also working with these people to identify their top accounts. And then because in an ideal world, you are separating signals, the accounts with the messaging. And in an ideal world, you would have you working with a go-to-market team to go, here's all your great accounts. This is how we're going to split it across all of your reps. Here you go. Reps then get their accounts given to them. They don't have to spend any time doing any research. Then they're just going, I just need to find the personas now, add them to my sequences and do messaging. Like that seems like the perfect kind of GTM team.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about like, okay, if you're a business owner, or you're a founder or whatnot, or you're the sales leader, even for that organization, you're judged on the amount of pipeline your reps can generate, right? The highest odds of you generating that pipeline is if your reps are doing a few things: making cold calls, sending LinkedIn notes, or sending emails, right? And you could probably throw events in there too. If they're not doing one of those four things, they're not generating pipeline. They're prepping to generate pipeline, right? But they're not generating pipeline. And so now how do you get your reps to spend most of their time doing those four things? Is by automating all the stuff it takes to get there, right? Finding accounts, finding good details on the people, contact information, right? Writing emails, research. Those are all the pieces you have to do in order to enable these four steps. And the more that you can automate, right, using Clay or Bird Dog or Claude or whatnot, the more of this you can do, right? The more of these four actions you can do, and that makes your reps not only more efficient, generates a more pipeline, and puts more commissions in their pocket. So it makes everyone more happy the less time they're spending doing this admin work, which is why we've seen all these tools pop up to like auto update the CRM and prep you for meetings and all these different things. That's the underlying reason, because the more time you spend doing the couple most important things to generating pipeline, that means you actually get more pipeline. It means you get more shots on goal. It means you can score more goals because you're taking more opportunities. And so that's how we see it, is like, how do you automate the admin work, the prep work to do the real thing that actually generates pipeline? And that's where we slot in, is like, hey, let's get your reps a really good list of accounts. Boom, 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 boom. That's all they need to care about. They don't care what account gets picked. They just want a deal that's going to close. And so if we can do the prep work before that, set up a system that's going to systematically do that, and then just feed them the opportunities, they're as happy as could be, right? Because that means more commissions for them, it means more pipeline, everyone's happy. I think the other thing to consider too is like when you have those free-for-all moments, and I've seen this at a couple companies, including another huge company, which I was shocked that they do it that way, is you get a lot of accounts that are not necessarily ICP. Because the rep is doing the filtering, there's no structure to how they're selecting the accounts. So you get a lot more edge counts that may not be a great fit, which means your churn goes up, your LTV goes down, right? There's a lot of underlying problems of not having a really good ICP fit account. And so it's like, how do you point your reps in the direction of the best accounts, the best timing, give them all the research and intel you would want them to have to make a great pitch, and just repeatedly do that every day?
Yeah. Do you know what, Jack? Genuinely, I'm really bought in. Like from a BDR perspective, I, for example, will do my account research on a Sunday night. So I'll select, say, on last thing on a Friday, last hour, I'll find 20 new accounts. And then Sunday, I'll run it through some Freckle enrichments. It's like Clay, basically, just a BDR, like an easy version of Clay to use. And then I'll get all of my accounts, all of my research, throw it into Perplexity, get me some messaging signals, tier it, And then come Monday morning, all I've got to do, because I'm not going to phone Monday morning, is I will just add prospects. And then come Monday afternoon, it's downhill. But it's like, if there was someone to do all of, and because I'm a BDR, because I'm juggling other things, maybe I miss some things in the account enrichments. I also find that I'll spend a load of time enriching an account. I'll then start prospecting them on Monday morning, and they've only got 10 decision makers, and none of them are really the right personas. So then I'll start deleting accounts. So if all of that was done by, say, you, that I can say from a BDR perspective, that makes things a whole lot easier. And it's not like it's more output. It's still more output as well. And not every BDR will be doing enrichments on a Sunday night. They'll be doing it on a Monday. So it will be eating into their time. Switching gears a little bit in terms of like signals, so like options of signals, so people can get a flavor of, okay, Bird Dog's just not just another C-level hire M&A. Like, can you give us some examples, some more niche signals that you've used to like generate pipeline?
Yeah. So one for us, we have a bunch of signals we track internally. One that I really like is, are they having people on their team build out internal sales dashboards or workflows? Think like, I don't know if you saw what Ramp did like 6 months ago. They built out that internal sales tool. That is my favorite play. Like, we've done a couple of those deals since then for other teams that are building out something similar. Those deals are really sticky for us. Like, that's a really big deal for us to get. And so what I have is a signal that's just literally looking through every single source that company puts out online. And most of the time that's pulling from like a job posting they're hiring for, where it's like, hey, your responsibility is going to be building out this new dashboard for us, or this new internal tooling or whatnot. And that's my favorite signal. Other teams, I mean, it's everything from random things they mentioned in their earnings call, like, do they pay for CapEx with cash flows? Like, are you doing a digital transformation in this very, very specific category? Are you running a multi-cloud infrastructure setup? Like, do you have an international office in the UK? Like, there's very random examples, but it's essentially anything you could put out online. And the one thing that I always like to do is, obviously we have a signal library some of our users can go through and get started with. Other thing we do is, like, for every new user that comes to us, what we built in the last couple months is actually a signal generator engine. So it's able to actually read through your company, understand your product, understand the limitations of our system, and then come up with all the most edge case, niche, random signals that you wouldn't think generate pipeline, but it will explain why it's come up with that. And it'll give you a list of 50 signals that just says, hey, here's everything I think might be interesting. Which ones do you want to go for? And it'll go down that list and you can select through them, which is kind of cool. And so, yeah, I mean, it's pretty much anything a company would ever put out online. But the most interesting ones I find are either from like executive interviews, which are filled with gems and no one listens to them, or from job postings, which literally tells you what the company is investing in. They're going to pay someone $100,000, $200,000 to do some job. What do they want them to do? And now you understand that. Now you can help them enable that and make that happen.
Well, you mentioned the job posting sounds powerful. You're going through all of those. You're following all of the releases. You mentioned about interviews. That's such a powerful thing. Are you actually is whatever you're doing scanning the video and lifting out like things because I'm even thinking of someone I was reaching out to recently, and she was like a COO who I wouldn't normally reach out to. But I was interested in people who were involved in like investing in the tech part of the business, and she started saying, "Oh, I'm involved," but it was only in this video where she was like, "Oh, I'm involved in the tech leadership program here," and she started talking about it, and it's like, "Oh, okay, actually." I'm going to add this fringe persona actually in, and there's a good messaging angle, and she's actually the right. But I guess that's more person level rather than account level. But yeah, so you're actually scanning these videos, right, to determine to help with timing as well.
Yeah, so right now we do earnings calls, which is the main source of a lot of those kind of interview signals. And then what Noah's been working on is a way to ingest any video. So he's working on this now where it's like podcasts, YouTube videos, like event videos, ingest all of it. Because the way our signals work is like it will pick up any information related to that company. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a company post. Like you mentioned that lady, like it will go find extraneous things that it knows are related to that company and say, hey, oh, this is not directly from the company itself, but this lady who works there just said this, and this, and was quoted in a news article, right? And the next evolution of that will be like actually reading the video. But right now, I mean, we pull from a wide variety of sources, and like people are like, how did you find this information? Like, I literally just got off a call with a guy. He's like, oh my God, I never would have found any of this. He's like, he was so happy afterwards. He's like, I'm going right to Claude. I'm going to start writing messages. So it's cool to see people's reaction to what is out there. Yeah.
Wow. So you just said it basically. Like you're enabling people to go straight to the messaging. Like you said, he can go straight to Claude. So that kind of feeds into my next question then. Like, do people need to fact check your signals, or can you have a lot of trust and confidence? Like, is there a lot of will it give you a confidence score, or will it only publish if it is confident? Just because, like, I'll just give you an example. Like when I use Claude, I can prompt for hours and hours and hours and hours, but I still find signals wise it will spit out a load of wrong information. Whereas with Perplexity, I can give it a fairly simple task, and it will share. It's a lot more accurate, and that's just my personal experience. There's no data to back that up or anything. But for you, like, what are your customers seeing in terms of like confidence and signals, so they can just go straight to the messaging?
Yeah, we give every signal a confidence score. So it depends on, I mean, obviously every signal gets backed by a source. So there's like a direct link back to that source, which is one thing Claude really struggles with. But for that, it's like, hey, here's the source where this came from. We've reviewed the like reliability of the source, the age of the source, the amount of times the source was quoted. And then for us, we usually tend to back up every signal with multiple sources. So we'll pull, hey, is account hiring for sales reps? Okay. Well, we found a LinkedIn post where the company put out, hey, we're hiring for sales reps. They also put out 2 job postings on their company's career board, right? So now we're fairly confident that that is occurring now, right? And we'll stack multiple sources to back it up. But there are some times where like it is low confidence. We're like, hey, I'm not really sure if this is related, and we'll flag it. We'll be like, hey, I'm like, this signal is really old, or the source is undated or not trustworthy. It might be true, right? Check it out. And then it will flag that to you, and you can go check it out and make sure it's validated. And then if not, obviously provide feedback to the system. So it goes, okay, not validated, and then it will learn. So yeah, we'll provide a confidence score. And that's one of the big things with all these AI models. I was like, my favorite question on demo call is like, why not just use ChatGPT? I'm like, please do. Like, please do. Like, ask it for signals on your own company and realize that all of them are wrong, right? That's what is going to happen. Like, go find me buying signals on BirdDog. It's going to make them up. Like, we'll definitely do that. So I find that very interesting and very funny. But that's usually a good use case for why you would want a system like ours beyond being able to do it at scale across 50,000 companies at once, which would take you an eon typing in a ChatGPT over and over and over again. So I think it's become very interesting. But yeah, there is a lot of layers and data checks we have to do to make sure the signals are good. And it's something we're constantly working on to improve it and refine it and tweak it and make that system better.
Nice. Nice. I'm just thinking that could be a really awesome like content piece for you, like just picking a random company with a bird dog and just typing into ChatGPT, give me all of the signals on bird dog, and then just like show all the wrong information. Do the same with Claude, do the same with Plexi, and then obviously get bird dog to do bird dog.
Time to write that down.
Yeah. We should make a video. Oh, that'd be good. So okay. Look, we've got 15 minutes, okay, questions. We're going to do a little quick fire signal game. We're going to pick some signals, and I want you to tell me like how you would go about finding that information, either using BirdDog or using any other tool, and also your kind of impression on that signal as well. So like the first one would be cost and profitability, like optimization. So it could be things like looking at recent quarterly financial reports or the last year financial reports and noticing that the company, there is a little bit of a pressure that they might want to cost save a little bit. They've got savings in mind. How would you go about finding that information for a company?
Yeah, I'll do it for the sake of the game. I'll do it all off BirdDog because I think that's more interesting. Like I think generally I'd rather have people doing signal-based outreach, whether you sign up with us or not. So the way I would approach that, let's say like I hadn't built BirdDog, or this is literally what we did before we built the software, is like we didn't have a product. We like manually researched every single company for all of our customers for like almost 6 months before we were able to figure out how to build it. Nightmare. Don't even bring me back to there. It was it was terrible. But it taught us the way to actually go find these signals either at scale or somewhat manually. And so for cost cutting and somewhat profitability focus, right, there's kind of two big buckets. One, for your publicly traded companies, you're going to have your quarterly reports and you're going to have your annual reports. In there, it will outline what their cost cutting goals are. So it'll show where they're trying to bring their margins. It'll show where they're trying to cut costs. It will provide executive commentary on which costs they're trying to cut and why. That's a great place to start. Obviously, if you're trading in the public space, right? If you're selling, large mid-market or even enterprise deals, that's where you're going to play. Now, for every other company that isn't in the public space, you're going to go probably to job postings. And the context isn't that they're hiring for a new CFO, because that doesn't necessarily mean they're trying to cut costs. It's more so what is in the context of that job posting itself. What are the responsibilities? What is the description? What is the role? What are they tasked with? And in there, you'll find a lot of times, hey, we're trying to cut margins or improve costs or lay off part of the business or whatnot, to give you that detail. And so there's kind of two angles to approach it, one from the public side and one from smaller company side. I think it's overall a pretty good signal. It just depends on how close your pitch is. And so really for us, like that becomes a piece of a signal puzzle, right? So that's one check in the box or one feather in the cap, but you really want some other signs that they're going to move in the direction of your product. Like let's say for that large finance company that everyone would know the name of that sells corporate cards, cost cutting is one of their signals. They only want cost cutting if it also shows up with an international expansion, because that's when they're trying to improve costs across the board. And now they also have to scale the cards and infrastructure globally, which brings other challenges. So they can solve both of those problems in one shot. And so that's where I think the signal becomes very interesting, is not the fact that they are cost cutting, right? But it's the fact that they're cost cutting and doing other signals that would suggest they're very specifically focused on your problem.
By layering these two things together, you can actually you're not making up a story. It's not for messaging purposes of how do I weave a story to get my foot in the door. It's we've got two bits of information. What does that actually tell us about where they are as a business? Not from a signals, from a account fit perspective. That's great. And the other thing you mentioned as well, again, it just comes back to the importance of job postings, because like even for cost profitability pressures, because might have last quarter or last year's financial report, but that is going to then trickle into the job postings, which are more recent. So that is the latest piece of information that we should be picking up on, natural language processing, which I imagine you guys are doing. That's incredible. It's incredible. Yeah, that's such a powerful thing. So, okay, just a couple more then. We'll do actually. Let's do recent M&A signals.
Mhm.
And again, let's use a business that helps another business save money.
Yeah.
How how far back should we be looking at recent M&A? Maybe it's for they've just bought their bigger acquisition. They're consolidating their business. When should we go? That M&A was too long ago. We don't need to worry about it anymore. And again, how would you find that information? Would you just Google it? Is that a simple Google?
Mhm. Yeah, I would say you could go simple Google. A lot of times, like, I mean, if you're going to go like Perplexity's route, like that's a good way to supercharge your Google. Like, honestly, most people shouldn't be Googling anything anyways. Like, we were using like an early version of Perplexity to find the signals when we were doing it manually. But obviously, like, you have to check that every day. So, like, if tomorrow they have an M&A acquisition, like, and you didn't search Perplexity, well, now you've missed it. And so I would recommend using a Perplexity. You can do a search. The big thing isn't necessarily on the timing and how old you are, because some of these signals, really for like an M&A is an example. If you reach out the same day that they're acquired, or like the same day someone gets a funding round, get in line behind the other 50 people who did the same thing that day, right? Like, this is the one gripe I have with a lot of signal tools, is they track the same signals as everyone else. So like,
Yeah.
funding, job changes, M&A. Like, if you're a VP of sales and you change jobs, like, I feel bad for your inbox, right? Because everyone is tracking the same signals. And so now timing becomes very important. Either you want to be at the front end of that curve, right? Before the M&A happens, you're warming them up, building the conversation, and most importantly, defining the decision criteria for when they eventually do go with a vendor. That's what the most expert salespeople will do, is they're like, hey, Tim, I know you're not ready, but when you do choose a vendor, think about these three things. And the three things you think about are the perfect fit criteria for your product or service that no one else has, right? So for us, like, I'm like, hey, I know you guys are too early into this M&A transaction. The one thing you do consider when you want to start building your go-to-market tech stack and you want to choose a signal vendor or a way to build account lists is you should choose someone who, one, can identify you net new accounts, right? Two, stack those signals on top of each other, because one signal isn't really important, but multiple are. And three, tie in all your systems easily. And so those are three decision criteria that only we have, right? And now when Tim goes to think of it 6 months later, those three criteria are still in his mind. And now we're set up to win the deal. So that's what the best kind of sales reps are doing, is not that you're trying to sell them before the deal. You're building the criteria, the framework for when they do eventually decide that you win that deal. And so you either want to be on the front end before the event happens, before the funding happens, or before the M&A happens, or once the dust settles. But you're going to be in a competitive deal at that point. So you better come with a really good pitch and a really good POV.
Wow. There's two things that come out of what you just said, which is really powerful, and it ties back to what you were trying to do as BirdDog. Is there's two things. You want to identify signals that no one else is picking up on, more niche signals, and then combining them together to get a very specific problem and help them with, and wow. But the other thing, like you say, is identifying signals before other people as well, like the more common signals. So yeah, that's really, really interesting. And I guess you guys want to become the go-to place where people don't have to go to Perplexity and people don't have to go. They can just get everything they need in BirdDog. Like, it's that one-stop shop for all things signals. We spoke 6 months ago. You also mentioned that in the beginning of BirdDog, it was just you and Noah. Like, Noah might have been coding, but you were literally just in Perplexity and Googling. Can you talk us through the evolution of the business to today, and then what is actually next for BirdDog? And I did get a sense of a little bit of hybrid between service and platform coming as well. And so I'm interested, what does that look like in the future?
Where it started in the early days is, I mean, to go way back, it started as an investing platform. Like, our whole premise was to find news for investors. And I've talked about this story before, but like, it ultimately didn't work out, right? I couldn't even sell it for $1 a month to people. And these two sales guys came to us. They're like, hey, I like this for sales and prospecting. I'm like, I don't know what a salesperson is, who is an account executive, what is a prospect. And so that's where we started. We literally started from ground zero, trying to figure out what is the application to sales. And so then the evolution was we essentially just interviewed everyone we could. We went through, like, Noah and I both went to Michigan, and we went through the Michigan alumni directory and literally cold emailed every single person who worked in sales. It was like, hey, we have an idea. We have no clue if it works. Can you please talk to us for 15 minutes? And we had about 200 calls over the span of 2 months. And so every night we'd get on the phone with these people and ask them questions. Like, what are you struggling with? Where are you finding the value? What are the best reps doing? And then we had the idea. I was like, okay, like, it seems like the pattern is something along, at the time we didn't call it signals. We call it like account research or intent. And then we're like, okay, well, maybe we can just sell this. And so we just started calling these people back, and we're like, well, hey, if we could do that, would you buy it? And we ultimately got a couple people to buy it and roll it out. And we're like, oh shoot, we don't have a product. We have nothing. Like, and so what we did is we literally would get up. We sent them out every Monday morning. I remember every Monday morning we sent out the new signals for the week. And so from the point of when we sent it out Monday morning, literally not even 5 minutes after that, we started researching again for new signals. And we had to find them new accounts, new information, new intel. And we literally spent like 70 hours a week each just researching accounts. It was insane. And we did that for about 6 months. That taught us the kind of foundations of how you'd build the tech and figure out where the unique signals are. Then Noah and I launched the software product, which was like summer 2024. It didn't really work. It took about 6 months to get it to some working version of what it looks like today. And then we went through basically 5 product rebuilds through like the next year and a half. And that's where we're at today. We're on the 5th or 6th version of it, depending on how you count. And so that's really where it's been. And for a while, like, the way we did it is we sold like pretty large enterprise deals. We got up to the point where I was selling $1,000 a month minimum annual contract to sales teams, right? And so most teams end up at 2 or 3 or 4 or 5,000. And what that did for us is that bought us a lot of time with design partners, essentially, is the way we like to look at it. Is we had sales teams who were really bought into what we were doing, willing to help us, willing to improve the product. And now what we're working on is, how do you take this guy and Noah out of the equation? And so that's what Noah's actually working on literally right now, is how do we design systems and how do we train our system to actually take all the knowledge that we built on how to design a really good signal and get people set up and allow them to do it themselves. And so that will be coming out in about a month, teasing kind of what we're working on. And we started testing it with, like, I think we've had 10 people sign up for it in the last week. It's gone really well. So we're super excited. Obviously, we'll launch it publicly, and I'm sure it will do well. But it will be a cool evolution in something that no sales tool has really ever done, because most of these tools charge $250,000 and lock you into a 3-year contract. And so we're going to do something a little different that may open some more doors.
Oh, that's incredible. And the other thing it makes you think about as well is you've got phases of customers that came in at different versions of the build, and so you don't necessarily want to get the oldest, biggest, or like your biggest customers to change. You kind of want to keep the status quo with those guys and test on the newbies because of expectations. And then as you started to do that, so there's so much to think about, but it just sounds like a really exciting time for you, Jack. And yeah, I'm genuinely really excited to see it, mate.
I appreciate it.
Look, I think I'm gonna have to let you go. It's been an absolute pleasure. Loved having you. Loved kind of getting to share this and speak with you again, mate. It's been a pleasure.